This is an Empty Closet Radio podcast. Get more at facebook.com/emptyclosetradio. It's so camp.
Stop laughing at me. It's not even funny.
Yes, it is.
Hi, I'm Andrew.
And I'm Sam.
And this is The Empty Closet.
The show for everyone, whether you're in the closet
Or out and proud.
or somewhere in between.
101.9 Coast FM. You're in The Empty Closet with Andrew and Sam. We're back to normal. Like, I think this is the first week in ages that we haven't had any extra people in the closet, or you haven't been away, or I haven't been away. It's crazy.
My goodness, it's like we have routine.
I know. And we've got lots of stuff coming up on the show today. We're going to be talking about ride-sharing apps, because I had a bit of an experience at the weekend. We're also going to be talking about some interesting things that Netflix is commissioning at the moment.
Yeah, a little bit of exciting new things we're keen to see, and why maybe they're coming out at the moment. And we're also going to talk a bit about what's coming up.
Yes. Oh, there's lots of good events coming up this weekend. So make sure you stay tuned. And if you miss anything, you can check us out on our social media page. Just search for Empty Closet Radio. Hit the like button. That's on the big blue book of faces. And if you use the blue tweeting bird, just search for @emptycloset_AU, and Sam tells me it has to be all in lowercase for it to work.
I think that's the case. And of course you can check out the podcast on your favourite podcasting app. Hit the subscribe button. Just look for Empty Closet Radio. You're on 101.9 Coast FM. You're in the Empty Closet with Andrew and Sam.
Take time to inhale every moment.
Empty Closet Radio. Listen to us using your TuneIn radio app on your smartphone. Very smart.
101.9 Coast FM. You're in the Empty Closet with Andrew and Sam. Now, Sam, we've got a few things to talk about today, but something that's been on the news recently is around ride-sharing apps. Now, in Cairns, there's really just one big ride-sharing app. Overseas, they've got like some competitors that are pretty big as well. And this is a story from the US where there was a gay couple that was in the back of a ride-sharing car, and they showed some affection to each other. And from what I gather, it's not like full snogging. It was like a little peck on the cheek, or maybe a little peck on the lips, like not very much.
They weren't hooking up in the back seat, you meaning?
No, I don't think the driver would have had to wipe down the back seat, is what I'm saying.
Right.
And so one little peck, and the driver lost it. Absolutely lost it. The driver was saying, "I'm going to end your ride. I can't have that in my car. I don't have that here." He was getting like really, really upset. And the people who were involved, they have been reported to be saying, well, it was a really disproportionate reaction for what had actually happened. And so they got kicked out. And of course they made a complaint to the ride sharing app, and that ride-sharing app was like, oh, well, we will disband him. He's no longer allowed to drive for us. But, of course, there's other ride-sharing apps that he could work for. So I wonder whether it begs the question around, like, it's all very well and good to have a non-discrimination policy, and it's very good that you kick the drivers off the platform if they don't comply, but they'll just go on to another platform. Is it actually going to change the behaviour? What do you think, Sam?
I think it's tricky because I don't think that without punishment to them that there's any incentive to change, perhaps. Although I guess if the fear of it happening again, maybe, depending on the person. But like, say that a fine is handed out to the company, or the company fines its drivers for breach of contract or whatever, and then they fire them, or they fine them and then provide sensitivity training or something.
Well, I don't think they can fire them, because the way that these things work is that each driver is like an independent contractor, and the app acts like a booking service, and that's like where they draw the line.
Yeah. But even so, there's still, you know, if you have a contractor in a workplace, you can still be like, this has broached this and there are these consequences, rather than just go, oh, well, we're not going to give you shifts anymore. And that be the only thing.
I feel like it just means that this driver's not going to be working for company A and is just going to get more jobs through company B. Or maybe he'll just like, get a new email address and a new phone number and continue driving. Who knows?
Yeah, look, one of the failings of services like these, so anything that's kind of cuts out the middleman of organisation, whether be it about driving or accommodation or whatever, runs the risk that nobody is then responsible for the behaviour of the people involved. So unlike, say, a taxi service, for instance, or a hotel chain or a supermarket where if the first person, you know, doesn't respond appropriately, there's a chain you can move up, you know, you can go to the next level. There's a HR department or whatever. This doesn't have that. And this is something that a lot of these apps have got in trouble for before, is that they don't respond appropriately because they go, well, it's not our responsibility. They're not technically our employees. They're contractors, but you still have, like under Australian law, you still have responsibility for your contractors, what they do under your guise.
Yeah, I think this all happened over in the US. So I haven't heard any stories of anything like this happening in Australia yet. But I say not yet because these ride-sharing apps are just growing here. Like they're not as established as they are in the US.
And I mean, I know plenty of people who swear by apps like this, and I also know plenty of people who've had bad experiences and perhaps felt like nothing would be done if they reported it. So it's not really a culture conducive to reporting problems. You know, I'm willing to bet that there's been queer couples before who've got comments or something that perhaps aren't quite as obvious as someone yelling at you and threatening to make you get out of the car, that they haven't reported because, well, it's not going to go anywhere.
Yeah, that's kind of interesting. And I know there are some people who just refuse to use any of those ride sharing services, which I think is very interesting as well. I have a story about a ride sharing service that I used at the weekend, but that's going to come up after this. You're on 101.9 Coast FM in the Empty Closet with Andrew and Sam.
Empty Closet Radio. Like us on Facebook. You're on 101.9 Coast FM. You're in the Empty Closet with Andrew and Sam, and we are waiting with bated breath, Andrew, for you to tell us your story of the weekend. What happened?
Well, with bated breath is a bit of an exaggeration. We've been talking about the different ride share apps, and so I'm kind of sit on the fence. Sometimes I use ride share apps, sometimes I use the good old fashioned taxi service, and realistically, half the time in Cairns, the taxi service ends up being the same price anyway.
Yeah, I haven't found it significantly cheaper, which seems to be the main appeal of the ride-sharing service.
Well, so on this particular occasion, it did look like it might work out cheaper. So I was like, okay, I'll give that a go. And you know when it, like, you place your booking and then they rock up and all the driver can see is like your little profile picture, and so then they're like driving along the road looking for someone who kind of looks like you, or half the time looking for someone who's like anticipating, like looking at their phone with anticipation, standing at the side of the road, right? So I was on my way to a fancy dress party and the theme was Rise Like a Phoenix. So of course, you know what I did, don't you?
I saw photos of what you did.
So Rise Like a Phoenix was the Eurovision song that won in 2014. I'm pretty sure it was 2014. And it was sung by Conchita. She's amazing.
I was going to say, if you don't know which one it was, I'm sure that we've talked about it on a previous Eurovision episode.
Yeah, she's absolutely amazing. If you don't know who she is, Google it. And you will see why my costume as Conchita Wurst may have been a little bit confusing for the taxi driver. He rocks up and he's like, I nearly sprained my ankle as I was walking to the cab as well, because heels, not my strong point.
No, they're not a very practical shoe type.
No, they definitely were not. Especially when you're in part of Cairns that does not have proper sidewalks. So I was like, I nearly fell over trying to get into the car. Anyway, so he goes, Andrew? And I was like, yes. And the whole rest of the car ride, because I was in the car with him for like 15 minutes, the whole conversation was really interestingly was about how fluid gender identity is. And he was right into the conversation. And can I just say, this driver that had picked me up, he was in like fully sick car. He's like started telling me about how he used to work down in some kind of a car repair place. Like he was really hyper masculine guy, had a full conversation with Conchita Wurst, or my terrible impersonation of Conchita, about gender fluidity and about how amazing it is that and it was more or less like commenting on how the gender identity for your outward expression is quite a lot of it is just smoke and mirrors and a lot of face paint.
Yeah. And I think it's really great that you could have that conversation, and have a lot of fun with it, as opposed to having someone who spent the whole time looking at you in the mirror, with really strange looks on their face.
Yes. Well, so that begs the question of what happens when it's really fun for one night. If that was my permanent reality, I think it would be a different story. So later that night, we decided to go to a local nightclub after going to this party, and no one else was dressed as Conchita. They all had boring costumes. And we go to this nightclub. I'm dancing away, having a great old time. Some guy comes up to me. There's all these tourists, by the way, and a bunch of the tourists, mainly the women, they come up to me and they're like, "Oh my God, I love your Conchita outfit. It's amazing." They get it. Yeah. And a few of the guys gave me looks like, "Oh, I don't really know how to take you." Some of them touched me inappropriately, but I was like, well, this is interesting. This is what women put up with all the time. And there was one guy that came up to me, and picture this, real hyper mask bloke. His shoulders were twice as wide as I am. And he's like, "Dude, why are you dressed like that?" And I was like, well, actually, this is a costume for the Eurovision winner in 2014. Her name was Conchita. I went to a costume party earlier today. And he's looking at me blankly. And he goes, "Well, you're making me feel uncomfortable." And I was like, "Why? What is it? Is it the dress that's uncomfortable? Is it, oh, wait, I know what it is. It's because I've got a run in my stockings, isn't it?" And he looked at me. Oh my God, he gave me the biggest daggers. In the meantime, I'm out of the corner of my eye looking to see where are the security guards in this place. He gave me the biggest daggers. And then he left. He left because he was so uncomfortable. He just left the venue. It was crazy.
But good, because as opposed to him smacking you in the face, which is always a thing you've got to be a bit worried about.
Honey, if anyone touched that glitter-laden face makeup, I'm pretty sure he would have been smashed by about 10 other people that were there with me. Just saying.
But it is something that, it's a bit heavy to go with the rest of this topic, but just quickly before we wrap up and go to another song, the idea that people feel like they have the right to come up to you and go, "Your outfit makes me uncomfortable," when it's not like you've got baby heads dangling off you or something, gore porn all over it.
But I think the reason why it made him feel uncomfortable is because, and there were some of the guys that were in our group actually who know me a bit better, they communicated this to me. They were saying that they were a bit uncomfortable with the fact that I looked like a stereotypically hot woman and that I had a beard painted on, and they didn't know really what to do. They were half of the time they were checking me out across the dance floor, and the other half of the time they were like, "Hey, let's go have a beer with Andrew and ride on his motorbike."
Yeah, that idea that if you see someone dressed up and you think they're hot and then they're not what you expect, and somebody not what you expect, what they don't expect, and that makes them really uncomfortable, which is honestly something I don't understand as someone who is attracted to a wide variety of peoples.
Why is it that straight boys are not given permission to just be okay with that, though?
performative heterosexuality. You're on 101.9 Coast FM. You're in the Empty Closet with Andrew and Sam.
Empty Closet Radio, because no one else wants to be stuck in the closet. God.
You're on 101.9 Coast FM. You're in the Empty Closet with Andrew and Sam, and we were just talking a little bit about, what people expect and what they're attracted to, and Andrew's experience dressed up in a club on the weekend. And you pointed out that there's a Netflix series coming out that specifically has a female president who is a lesbian, right, in America. And we were talking a little bit before the show about why is it that, we'll watch this on TV and, why is it only on TV? Why aren't we seeing people like this in actual positions of power? What is it about it that people expect?
Well, actually, I think you're so eloquent, Sam. You're so eloquent. I think what I actually said is, why is it that the Americans need to see it on TV before they make it reality?
I think that that's pretty common, though, in some respects. That if you see it on TV, if you see it as part of not just TV, but if you see it as part of what's around you growing up, that normalizes it. So, for instance, little kiddies who grow up and find that maybe they're not just attracted to the opposite gender, kind of go, oh, but, this person on this TV show, I'm going to be like them. Or this person who I've seen in real life, I'm going to be like that person, like role models.
Yeah, I feel like that happens all the time. And basically boys are told that they have to have a role model who's a footballer. I think I'm just vomiting a little bit. Just a second.
But it's also the thing that, it's hard to say because this show hasn't come out yet. First Ladies is the name of the show, right? I really hope that they don't do it in their emotions are going to get the better of them because they have hormone cycles.
No, it's on a streaming platform. And I think that, so the way that these streaming platforms work when they create a show is they are not viewership driven, or if they are, they're not, they don't actually tell the producers how their ratings have been, but they have all this data. So they can see at what point people decide not to watch anymore, or if people fast forward something, they know which part is not well. But when they're producing this content, they just tell the producer to go ahead and have fun, but we're going to pay you for your time, but you have no idea about what the viewership is going to be like, which I think leaves people way open to be as creative as they want. And I think that it probably leads the way to have more genuine stories. One thing that does get me a little bit annoyed about this idea of having the first female president in the United States that's been showing in this show, one thing that annoys me is that she is portrayed as a lesbian. So there's that space where people are going to be like, oh, well, she's more masculine and that's why, she's become that position of power. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's a, for all the actual attracted women out there, it can be a double-edged sword because it comes about either as they're playing it off that it's the masculine traits, or alternatively, and I don't think this is the way this show will go, but alternatively, when you see lesbians, they're played off for heterosexual men to look at and drool over. It's not a genuine portrayal.
Yeah, but don't you think, there's so many other movies that heterosexual guys could drool over Jennifer Aniston in. It's literally, this is not the one to be watching if you want drool-worthy, unless you're really into a power suit, someone who's really making big decisions.
Well, who knows? But I do think that I do think you're right that with the advent of these online streaming services, you tend to start seeing more content that's perhaps not targeted at what's considered the mainstream audience. So hopefully this is another example of that. So rather than being eye candy, or rather than effectively, deciding that, these women's, they're too irrational to do this, or the lesbians, they're going to have orgies in the White House or whatever, that it will actually be a nuanced and genuine portrayal.
Yeah, hopefully there will be more. And I think, hopefully they're going to have some more, women producers on this team that's creating this show as well.
Yeah, I think this is something that that isn't so visible but is really important, is actually diversity behind the camera in producing TV shows and movies. So costume designers that aren't just from, middle to upper class white America, for instance, as an example.
Costume designers who are not either female or stereotypically flamboyantly gay.
Yeah, but also just, maybe when they design their costumes, they didn't just look at what the stereotype is, but they're like, hey, I have knowledge of this culture because it's partly mine. Or, producers, as you say, who are women, or makeup artists who are men and who are respected for it and don't have to be flamboyantly fabulous. Just getting more ideas, more interest, more varied writers, things like that makes a huge difference to what's shown on the screen, because it's not just a stereotype in someone's head. They've actually experienced it or lived it.
You're on 101.9 Coast FM in the Empty Closet with Andrew and Sam.
Empty Closet Radio, facebook.com/Empty Closet Radio.
101.9 Coast FM. You're in the Empty Closet with Andrew and Sam. Now, Sam, I have something very exciting that I've found. I have two nephews and another nephew on the way and a little niece, and I found something that I want to be able to give to them, and it's a book. I know, very old-fashioned, a book.
I love that you're saying that to me, and from here you can see at least one packed bookshelf.
Yeah, I have no bookshelves in my entire house, Sam. You know that.
It disgusts me, but anyway, we'll move on.
So this is like a picture book that's challenging the typical fairy tale thing. Because the typical fairy tale is I'm a little princess and I'm waiting for my Prince Charming to come along.
The typical fairy tale has the sexy lampshade, as we like to call it. If you can replace... So it's a heterosexual tale usually that ends in happily ever after marriage, and you can usually replace the princess with a sexy lampshade and nothing changes because she doesn't actually do anything in the story.
Yes. She just usually sits around and looks pretty in general. This picture book is called Prince and Knight, and it's all about this prince who is trying to find the love of his life, and there are so many potential young ladies, but he discovers that he's not really into them. And he goes and he does all the exciting things like fighting dragons and going on an adventure, until finally he meets a knight in shining armor, of course. So there's some parts of fairy tales that we need to keep, and that's we have to have a hyper-masculine knight in shining armor to come and save the day for the rich, wealthy prince who looks a little bit twinky.
I really think you should read it before you read quite that much into it, because I don't really think...
It's a picture book, Sam.
Yeah,
I've
but
seen the pictures.
Yeah, but he doesn't look particularly twinky. Anyway, whatever. But I do, and he literally fought a dragon, so it's not like he's locked in a tower.
Twinks can do lots of things.
And is the stereotype that twinks do lots of things?
They can fight dragons, I'm sure.
Is that the stereotype?
No.
So perhaps it's still challenging stereotypes?
I don't know, Sam.
Now this reminds me, because I love children's books that challenge, the norm, gender norms, sexuality norms, anything. I also love that his parents are happy for him in the book. It just makes me so glad, that it's not part of the story isn't an argument with his family.
Yeah, can I read this little page out of it? I'll just read one page spread. Don't worry, it'll only take a second because it's a picture book and this is not a very visual medium. The king and queen had come back too and were overwhelmed with joy. We have finally found someone who is perfect for our boy. How cute is that?
It's so cute. But it does remind me of things like like when I was growing up, one of my favourites, Andrew, that you should totally get for your nibblings, was the Paper Bag Princess. And it has the princess whose fine gown and all that is, burnt away by the dragon that she's hanging out with. And so she puts on a paper bag. And when the prince comes to save her, he's like, "You're not very pretty at all." And she's like, "Well, stuff you," and just goes and does her own thing. And it's fantastic and it's amazing. And it was my favourite fairy tale.
Paper Bag Princess. Okay, that one and this one. Just in case any of my little ones that I'm looking after turn out to be questioning.
And just so that it's not just for kids who question, it's so that they can see that this is normal. These are books you should get for all children. Wide and varied range. Books are good.
Books generally are very good. Despite what I have to say about books. Despite my lack of books in my house.
Still so distressing for me. You're on 101.9 Coast FM. You're in the Empty Closet with Andrew and Sam. Empty Closet Radio, because no one wants to be stuck in the closet.
You're in the Empty Closet with Andrew and Sam. Sam, when I say think of a openly gay or lesbian or queer person who's in charge of a company, who do you immediately think of?
Alan Joyce?
Who else?
I don't know.
I'm like, I don't know enough about Alan Joyce to make comment on this. You know, the person who I immediately think of is Tim Cook, because he's the head of Apple, and I'm a massive Apple fanboy.
I am not a massive Apple fanboy.
Well, this would explain why you didn't think of Tim Cook. So there is something that's really interesting though that's happened just recently. So, speaking of tech companies, this is a report that's been commissioned by another tech giant, not the one that plays nicely with Apple. And they've commissioned Deloitte to put together a list of outstanding LGBT plus leaders, the top 50 of 2018. And one of the people who's on the list is a openly queer man who is living in regional Australia, who is doing an absolutely stellar job as CEO of a government department. How amazing is that?
Woo! Who is it?
So this is, drumroll please. You can tell we really broke the budget on those effects. Michael Tennant. He is the CEO of the Northern Territory's Department of Trade, Business and Innovation. How cool is this that regional Australia is performing so well in this area? I'm just so chuffed.
Yeah, it's amazing. I have noticed, in the last few years, a few times we've talked about really positive, rainbow news or representation that's come out of the Northern Territory, which is a really great sign because it is a state that, is not really known for giant cities. It's probably much more known for rural and remote areas.
Very, very remote. Extremely remote. So this is really interesting because he did an interview with you know that newspaper that always does the headlines with crocodiles once a week. It's a very reputable news outlet.
It is a reputable news outlet. It just made a point to have ridiculous front pages instead of the same front page as every other newspaper in Australia.
Right, so the NT News, we got it. He's told the NT News that he struggled to find the courage to come out at work in the beginning because the environment was intimidating. He was young and didn't know how people would react, so it took him a while, but this is my favourite part. It was my boss who inspired me to finally come out as a gay man to my colleagues, and that's so exciting. How good is that? Have you ever had a boss that's been like, you should just be yourself at work, and you look around the organisation and there's other people who are just being themselves and it's amazing? Have you worked in a place like that before?
I've had superiors who are open about who they are, which really does help, but I wouldn't say that I've worked in an environment that perhaps encourages me to be myself.
I've worked in a few places that have been like, actually looking back now, like all of the jobs that I've really, really loved, they're all places that have this value system around like being who you are creates a better world for everyone. And so I've had this experience of like managers and people in the upper echelons of the company being like, no, you should like just be who you are, you know. Tell us all about that gay festival. Tell us all about what you did at the weekend. We want to hear. We love you.
Yeah, and that explains a lot about why you like a place like that.
Oh, because they want to know about me.
No. Well, yes, that too. But I love you, dear. No, but it is really, it's difficult to articulate if you've never been in a work environment where an aspect of yourself that you can't change is something that makes you uncomfortable with that work environment, you know. It's difficult to articulate to other people why that's uncomfortable, why you don't like being there. Because to be honest with you, like for me, it took me a long time to realize that was why I was uncomfortable in some of my work environments. And it's not until I worked in a place that was much where it's not necessarily that I felt I could be really like out and proud or whatever, but where I felt much more supported and where there was a lot of other things I could say where I didn't feel immediately judged, that I really felt the difference that made.
It absolutely does. I think like there is a long way to go though. Like there's not every workplace is going to be like this. And I think that's like, that's really hard for me to come to that realization because I'm like, everyone should be happy.
Well, I guess the reality is that, I can't, you know, it's going to be a long time yet until the vast majority of people are always super comfortable with everyone else being who they are, you know. I mean, I can't imagine that if you went into a workplace and you were like, oh yeah, you know, on the weekend I practice cannibalism, that people would ever be okay with that. You know, that's a very, very big taboo. But, you know, there's a lot of things that people are okay with and we perhaps think they shouldn't be.
Yeah, so that's kind of an interesting way to look at it. Why do you always bring these things up when I'm like, oh, we should look at it this way, and you're like, hang on a minute.
Because I like to make you think. And on that note, we're going to go to another song. Andrew's going to think in the break. You're on 101.9 Coast FM. You're in the Empty Closet with Andrew and Sam.
Never enough. You will always find those days when it's rough.
Empty Closet Radio, 9 p.m. Tuesdays, 101.9 Coast FM.
Wake me when it's quiet.
101.9 Coast FM. You're in the Empty Closet with Andrew and Sam, and we're going to talk about what's coming up this week. Andrew is the man with the plan, meaning the social calendar. What's coming up this week, Andrew?
I love it how Sam's like, Andrew, just flip open your calendar and tell us what's on in Gay World. Thanks. Well, lucky for you, I do happen to have a list here. There's a few things coming up. So, on Thursday night, there's the Scoregasm, which is like a trivia night. That's being held at Conservatory Bar. First questions are 7 p.m. So if you want to socialise beforehand, get there a bit early, because once they start asking the questions, you can't chat with people. Make sure you get there a little bit early. And that's at Conservatory Bar in the centre of town, basically. And then we've got something really special coming up on the Friday night, because we don't often get the chance to do any of the queer events kind of outside of Cairns CBD. But there's something fun coming up in Port Douglas. So every year there's the Port Douglas Carnival. You've heard of it, yeah?
Yes, I grew up in Cairns. I'm very familiar.
Well, I just thought it was only Rio that did Carnival, but apparently I am wrong.
So wrong.
I'm not really sure that the Port Douglas one is quite as big as the Rio one, so I take no responsibility for your disappointment there.
It doesn't have to be disappointing. Maybe you like things, just not quite as wild.
I'm pretty sure it does get wild. They have like a parade as part of the Port Douglas Carnival Festival, and they've got all these other like performing arts things happening I think it's all through the week as well. But Friday night is when the main parade bit is. And the Cairns queer community is going to have a float that you can be part of.
Yeah, so if you want to get on board, see what I did there, you can get in touch with who, Andrew?
Oh, so if you just call Quack, you'll get all the information. So that's Queensland AIDS Council. They've got their office on the corner of Draper Street and Mulgrave Road. Or you can check out the Facebook page. I'm going to put it onto our page as well. So then just send them a message and you'll figure out how you can be involved. But basically we're going to be marching with the Australia's largest rainbow flag, which we've spoken about on the show many, many times. And we love getting it out and having a play with it.
It's Andrew's pride and joy.
It's amazing. So you can participate in that. It's basically the same sort of float as what we did for the Sydney Gay and Lesbian Mardi Gras. So if you missed out on that, because I know numbers were very limited with that particular float, if you missed out on that, come along to this one. It's the same sort of vibe. It's going to be amazing. It's going to be lots and lots of fun. And they need lots of people as well. So they need I think they can have up to 40 people helping carry that flag quite easily.
Yeah, so, get involved. It'll be great fun. So contact Quack, or if you just want to contact us because you love our voice, you can contact us for more details as well.
Absolutely. We'll send you in the right direction. After we're done with the Carnival Parade, there's an out party happening in Port Douglas. I think it's the first one that we've ever done in Port Douglas, to be honest.
Yeah, I agree. I can't recall another one in memory.
Yeah. Absolutely. So it's going to be really fun. And the out party's happening it's called the Estilio Bar. It's basically inside the QT Resort, Main Street of Port Douglas. You'll be able to find it. They also have a Facebook event page, so we'll put that onto the Empty Closet page too.
Yep. So get along to that afterwards to celebrate waving around Andrew's giant flag.
It's not mine. I don't own it. I just sewed it together. The community owns it.
The giant flag created by Andrew.
Goodness me. Yeah, so that's all coming up. And if you get along to all of those things this week, you'll be a very busy person.
And you might even see us there, or maybe not. Maybe you'll be too excited. Maybe Andrew will be in disguise again.
Oh, yeah, well, Conchita might come out again. Who knows? You're on 101.9 Coast FM. You're in the Empty Closet with Andrew and Sam.
Who has the ginger?
Empty Closet Radio. Follow us on Twitter. You're on 101.9 Coast FM. You're in the Empty Closet with Andrew and Sam, and that is all we have time for this week. We might have gone over time. That's pretty typical if you've listened to us before. Now, if you do want to catch up on any of our past episodes, or you want to catch up on some of the links that we've got to put up, some of the events happening this week, then do be sure to check out our big blue book of faces. Just look for Empty Closet Radio, hit the like button, or you can follow us on the Blue Tweety Bird. We're at emptycloset_AU, all lowercase. And if you just really miss our voice, you can also check out the podcast. So you look for Empty Closet Radio on your favorite podcasting app, hit the subscribe button. We're getting close to 200 episodes, which is quite frightening. And listen to us there. I was going to say you'll never run out, but that's not true. You will run out.
It's kind of like the new unlimited plans with your mobile phone. It's like unlimited, but you do run out eventually.
Yep. Have lots and lots of Empty Closet. You are on 101.9 Coast FM, and you are in the Empty Closet with Andrew and Sam.
Thanks for listening to The Empty Closet, brought to you by 1019 Coast FM Cairns.